welcome to the Football NSW Community Podcast. As part of Female Football Week this year, Football New South Wales ran a Women in Sport panel exploring the different career paths available to women entering the sports industry. Hosted by Stephanie Brantz, the panel featured Nicole Zosh, General Manager, Marketing at Football Australia, Jennifer Martin, Head of Broadcast at FIFA Women's World Cup 2023, and Hannah Lidster, Director, Club Services at A-Leagues. We hope you enjoy the discussion.
It's so good to have you here because what we're going to talk about tonight is all the realm of jobs that you can enjoy in football. Now, obviously, you're all going to play for the Matildas or the ones who have registered who aren't in a playing kit. We look at specific jobs in football, playing, coaching, refereeing, any of those officiating roles, maybe in admin. But there's so many more things to enjoy in football, and some of these gigs are super fun. I wish I'd known about them when I started, but I'm so pleased that you guys have the opportunity to hear about them tonight. For those of you who have no idea who the hell I am, apart from being a board director, that's the boring officiating side, I started my career in football in media. I started at SBS back in last century, 1998, and was there when the Socceroos qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 32 years in 2006, and everything just went gangbusters after that. And it was a really exciting time to be involved in football, and it's just gone on an upward trajectory since then. After that, I went to Channel 9, worked at Fox Sports, and then I moved to the ABC for about 10 years, where I was lucky enough to work on what was the W League, now the A-League Women, for many years amongst a host of other sports. But football's kind of always been my home, I guess, and it's been an absolute delight to see the progression of football, particularly women's football, and that's what we're celebrating, of course, in Female Football Week. But these women I want to introduce you to, I was lucky enough to meet through various roles within football. And you're about to hear about some of the really exciting opportunities that exist outside of a playing or an officiating career. So can I ask you to please make very welcome, just hold your applause. We've got the GM of Marketing from Football Australia, Nicole Zosh. Come on down, Zoshi. Jen and Hannah, come on down. Jen was head of the FIFA World Cup, head of broadcast, which was super exciting. And Hannah is A-Leagues. So we've kind of got every spectrum. We've got Women's World Cup, which you all would have been absolutely glued to, and we'll hear about what that involved, particularly from a broadcast perspective. Zoshi works at Football Australia every day, but we'll hear about what was involved in working with the Matildas and the Socceroos on their various World Cup journeys as well, which have been so successful over the last 18 months. And of course, you're all aware of the A-Leagues and you get to follow them week in, week out. And I'm delighted to say that Hannah's actually taken the time to come here tonight when Sydney FC and Central Coast Mariners are obviously playing. Mm-hmm. So if we hear a phone go off in your pocket, we know what's going on. But a very warm welcome to you. Now, I've given you their job titles, which doesn't really, I guess, explain what they do day to day. So I guess, Zoshi, if we start with you, sorry, Nicole, GM of Marketing, Football Australia, what does that mean?
Ooh, that's a broad question. Is this on? We on? Okay, gotcha. Yeah. General manager marketing and branding. It's such a really wide definition of what it can mean. But essentially, if you break it down, it's us promoting the teams within Football Australia. So my remit for my team is anywhere from all the national teams to community programs. So if you see you play football campaigns, that's the team that's working behind that, and also the competition. So it's making sure the brand is at a really high and professional level, and then making sure that we're promoting it so people can participate or attend as a fan, and also promote football as a sport for something that you can be a part of as a player or as a fan as well.
It also means that Nicole gets to be right inside the camps. So one of my jobs was working as a producer for FIFA TV, and that meant that I was embedded with the teams, and you'd follow the teams. We were only Australia. We'd interview players every day and make sure that everyone around the world could see that footage and get those interviews. But when I turn up at those camps, and it's either the team hotel as it was for the Matildas in Brisbane or for the Socceroos, they had that Aspire complex over in Qatar. It's all decked out with the most amazing pictures and signage and down to things that hang on the door and what goes into that for a World Cup to make that home away from home?
Yeah, it's a lot of working with important stakeholders and most importantly the team to understand what they want, because it's their home away from home when they're playing away in a tournament. So want to make sure that they're comfortable, they feel at home. What are the things they want to see in camp? What are the nice things? What are the things that might be nice to have? And just working closely with coaches as well to make sure that it's a professional environment for their players, to ensure, they don't have to think about those things, and it's just concentrating on performing on the pitch as well. But behind the scenes, it's working with designers, with contractors, suppliers, talking to people overseas in different time zones. So it's a lot of different things, but elements, but you bring it all together and you see the reactions of the players when they first come in. I don't know if you saw the Matildas when they ran into their the hotel in Brisbane, they were screaming. It was insane. So to get that kind of reaction, there's hard, the sweat and tears that goes into it, but you know that it's really worth it when you get the players screaming, literally screaming down the hallways of their hotel rooms. So you think you've done a good job then.
I'm not sure if any of you saw the socials of when the Matildas arrived and what they were screaming about, but can you just give an idea of what it meant when they walked into those rooms?
Yeah, so I think it was upstairs in their meals room. So we split it, meeting room, meals room, and their social room. So they had been told that none of their base camp was decked out. So they saw the likes of England and the US, like all these big, bright facilities. And they're like, oh, sorry, couldn't do it. So they kind of was like, not really had any expectations. So they came from zero to everything. So, they saw, I think they went crazy for the beanbags, funnily enough. Everyone was asking me for the beanbags. So it was just little home comforts for them. And, it was caricatures of themselves and really brighten up the place. It was, it's just a plain hotel. So how do we make it home for them? So it was just little touches like that.
And when they walked into their rooms, it went from the door, even the thing you hang on your door.
Yeah.
And inside, I think they had cushions on the bed with
their names on it. Yeah, so we had hooks that said Tide Tillies and all that kind of stuff, and we branded up the whole hallway. So yeah, it went from this drab kind of hotel that it was like the Matildas' like home, really.
Yeah, it was super. Shame World Cup's only once every 4 years, but so much fun. Jen, I met at SBS. She was basically running the place when I met her. And we lost touch over the years, but I went over for ESPN to cover the World Cup draw, which was held in New Zealand. And they said, oh, you've got to go and see Jennifer Martin. She'll show you to your seat in the press gallery. And she turned around and I went, oh my goodness, how are you? And we had this big reunion, and Jen was head of broadcast for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which was a massive role. Can you explain what goes into that?
Yeah, thanks. It was a massive role. It was probably the most important and impressive job of my career, and perhaps until the end of my days. It may still be that way. So yeah, as the head of broadcast for the local entity that was responsible for supporting the FIFA team in Zurich, I was responsible for basically there's really many thousands of parts, but ultimately there's what you watch on telly is basically a broadcast that's created for every single rights holder around the world. So everyone sees the same thing. Everyone sees the same exact camera shots, and it's very consistent, which is really important to FIFA, and it's also important to broadcasters around the world. They know what they're getting, they've got a rundown, and that's delivered. So that's a huge part of it. A small team working out all the camera positions and the heights and the angles and making sure that consistency of product. Separately to that, we have to look after the rights holders and their various different needs. So a lot of people do their production from their home countries and only send a reporter, maybe to do something on the sidelines. So we need to look after them when they come and support those people that do come in country with big studio setups like Fox Sports US, who had a huge setup down underneath the Harbour Bridge. So I had a small team then supporting the rights holders in country, so in Australia and New Zealand. I was really fortunate to have the head of broadcast role across both countries, which was again really important in the consistency of the product and the consistency of the experience for the rights holders, because they're covering the tournament. They don't care if it's in Perth or Dunedin, they want to know that when they get there, they get the same level of service. And then there's a lot of content being made. So again, a very small team are working with me to deliver. Each World Cup is very, very similar in the fact that it's elite performances and there's football on the field and all of the things that go along with that excellence of the tournament. But it's got to be placed in its host country as well. So it was really important to me that we get our First Nations and Maori representation correct and respectful, as well as making sure that we're appealing to the broadcasters around the world. You know, the Germans versus the Argentinians versus everyone around the world has different needs from their content. So my job was to try to make content that was fun, but also respectful to our countries without being kind of jingoistic, that I think, you know, the shrimps on the barbies and the kangaroos walking down the streets, and just to bring the depth of culture of especially our First Peoples was really important to me. So that's kind of an overview of the three general parts of my job.
Which is absolutely enormous. I was in France in 2019 for the Women's World Cup, and that already felt bigger than it had ever been before.
It was.
But this one grew legs like nothing we could have predicted. How much harder did that make your job? Because when you're doing a tournament, okay, you do a tournament and you give everyone what they need, but then all of a sudden when the tournament becomes very popular, I'm guessing all these people that hadn't planned for it suddenly jump on the bandwagon. What happened in your role when it just went off?
Actually, very little, I've got to say.
That's good, meant you're organised.
We were already prepared for what we knew was coming, and having worked in football for such a long time and on many women's and men's World Cups, we were prepared for the popularity for. I was concerned mostly with rights holders, but our non-rights holders are also important because they're the publicity for the game. So we have to, in my team, we were number one priority was the rights holders. It did mean we had to say no to a few people because they, you know, you think you can just rock up on a World Cup and just get your accreditation. It doesn't work like that. But I think the industry is sophisticated enough now that the expectation was set early, and there was a lot of communication with rights holders and non-rights holders around the world to make them understand the need for the accreditation early, the understanding of what support services would be available. So there was a lot of education, but then there was a bit of saying no.
Oh, that's always
sad.
No. Can you perhaps just explain what a rights holder is?
So you would have probably watched the games on Optus Sport or on Channel 7 here. So they are the rights holders for Australia. In New Zealand, our co-host, the rights there were with Sky Sports. But then around the world, there's FIFA runs a process of bidding for the rights, and often these are bundled with the men's football and men's World Cups. But this was the first time that the Women's World Cup was a standalone product that was being sold to rights holders. And that took a little bit of adjusting for rights holders, I think, to understand that they had to value the women's game and the Women's World Cup as highly as it deserved to be valued. But basically it's a process that FIFA has with all of the countries around the world. They'll be working with one or more television stations, basically, some streaming services, but it's still mostly broadcast networks, and they are the gold. They're the ones that bring in the money to pretty much allow the tournament to go ahead.
Yeah.
So they're very, very special people to us.
And the reason that you would have seen it across Optus and 7 is that's a sharing of rights, yeah?
That's right, yeah. So most rights sales, the priority is twofold. So they obviously want to get a lot of money for their property so that they can put that into the tournament and make it the best that it can be. But they also want it to be available very, very widely. So there's a sharing arrangement between a free-to-air broadcaster and a pay TV often broadcaster. and that satisfies both of those needs, making it available more broadly, but also bringing the money that they need to put the thing on.
So off the back of what we saw in 2023, do you think the rights for the Women's World Cup have changed forever?
I have no doubt. Yeah, it's incredible, and even post our tournament, the attendances in the stadiums and the viewing figures around the world are consistently surprising everyone when that's just the new reality, and it's fantastic.
Isn't it? It's absolutely brilliant to see and makes it so exciting for future World Cups. One of my other roles outside of media is live hosting, such as what I'm doing tonight, and I do a lot of it in function rooms around the country, but particularly around the sports. And I was lucky enough have been lucky enough to be doing it for Sydney FC for many, many years, which is where I first met Hannah Lidster, who's now Director of Club Services for the A-Leagues. So we'll talk about that role particularly. And Hannah's another one that you walk in and she's actually just got the whole place under control. So I don't actually know what that entails, but you're able to tell us. What does Director of Club Services do?
Well, it's a role that has evolved already. I actually transitioned from Sydney FC about this time last year into the A-League. So it was a new role, Director of Club Services. So basically my role is to be the champion of all the A-League clubs within the A-League, to make sure that their voices are heard, that we put together initiatives and projects that will help the fan bases of every single club grow, to put in commercial programs to make sure that they're financially sustainable, and generally to ensure that they have a point of contact that they trust, that can get things done, I guess, on the inside at the A-League. But as always in sport, roles evolve relatively quickly. So there was some restructuring done in January, and so I picked up strategy. So writing the next 5 years strategy for the A-League and all the clubs is one piece of work that we're looking at now. I've also picked up fan data and insights to drive a fan strategy across the league. And I also run the event operations for both the A-League men and A-League women. So that basically entails a team of people that kind of put together all the fixturing, plan all of the match days, plan all the event and security needs with every club for the running of both the men's and women's season.
Absolutely mental. I don't know how she's got an hour to be here tonight, but she fortunately, as I mentioned, the men are playing tonight. So the A-League men, their season is coming to its close with the final series on at the moment. Just take us through the women. We saw the grand final. I'm sure you're a little bit secretly super excited about Sydney FC winning that. And what's that been like, the growth? You mentioned fan data. How has that changed in the last 12 months?
This season has been more than we could have possibly imagined. I think, 2 years ago or so, we made an investment ahead of the A-League season to get it to a full home and away season to bring in more teams. So this was the first season that we saw that come to fruition. So we've played the longest season in women's professional sport in Australia, which is an accomplishment in itself. And that now allows our league to be on par with a lot of the international leagues, if not better than some of the big ones in Europe. But obviously off the back of that is all the great fan results that have happened this season. So club memberships in the women's space, for women's memberships only have gone up 600%. Attendances are up 130%. Our broadcast on Channel 10 and 10 Play for women's games went up 140%, I think it was. We have our Liberty Pass program. Maybe some of you in the room were a beneficiary of that. And Maggie helped roll that program out at the A-Leagues. You'll have to remind me on the percentage there, but I think that nearly doubled, if not tripled, this year as well. So I think, the core A-League fans that perhaps were traditionally men's fans have also started to really embrace their club as a whole and their women's teams as part of it, which I think is the most monumental shift and most important shift, I think, in growing the game.
Yeah, it's been super. I remember a season back when I worked for the ABC, when I was starting in women's football specifically with what was in the W League. I think we had a 9 or a 10-week season. It felt like as soon as it started, it had finished. So it's been great to see it expanded this season. Who here has been to an A-League women or an A-League men's game?
Oh, pleasing.
Yes, I was hoping that wasn't going to go really quick. Can you just take us through what we see when we arrive at the stadium? What's involved in setting up a match day Because we arrive and there's people playing mini ruse games, and then there's people walking out with the ball, and there's the tunnel and security people. What goes into that, and what do you do on a match day?
Yeah, how much time do you have? Well, I mean, obviously, like, you start from well before game day. So, you know, you've got your event and planning side of things. So you're obviously looking and working with the stadium in which you're hosting a match to work with, you know, how much staffing you need, what time you're opening gates, what, you know, how much catering do you need open on a match day, what experiences do you have outside the stadium, mini ruse games, face painters, what are the you know, I guess general activities that we can add into the match day from a fan perspective. Then you've got all the team operations. So there's a whole range of people working behind the scenes in the dressing rooms and the tunnels, match commissioners, and staff to ensure that the teams are catered for. They've got all the needs that they have to basically do their job on the pitch and not have to think about anything else, to keep the time, to ensure the referees and match officials are, you know, they're catered for as well. Then you've got a whole range of community development officers that are generally running a whole range of match day experiences. Again, I'm hoping at some point you might have had an experience in your time in the game at a match day experience with an A-League club. But that can be everything from, you know, march past to small-sided games to mascots to, you know, a whole range of different activities for lots of kids. And then you've got the corporate side of things. So you've got hospitality functions, suites, boxes, all of the signage around the stadium. That's all meticulously planned down to the second. There's a lot. I'm sure I'm missing lots, but...
And this goes on week in, week out at, 19 stadiums around the country, and just sounds absolutely crazy. I'm not sure how you guys are all saying it. You've got these crazy jobs. What I want to hear from you, though, and if you could share with the room, Hannah, I'll start with you as we're at this end. When you were 14, 15, 16, were you picturing yourself as Director of Club Services, Strategist, and Chief Data Analyst of Fan Engagement at the A-Leagues?
Well, not this role specifically, but I very much hunted down a role in sports business. I knew kind of early, you know, I probably wasn't going to be a professional athlete, which was fine. So I wanted to find a way to stay in sport. So I went and did a Bachelor of Sports Business, which kind of combined two things that, you know, I guess I was good at. So the business side of things and sport, which was my passion. So, I completed that degree and luckily got a job out of university with a team in the AFL back then called Team GWS, which is now the GWS Giants. So spent a couple of years with them prior to their entry into the competition of the AFL and their first season. My capacity there was in the corporate area, so corporate hospitality, sponsorship, signage, that type of role. And then I moved across to the NRL for a couple of years in the West Tigers. I did corporate there again and then transitioned into a bit of a business operations role and then transitioned into consumer business. So consumer business is basically looking after all of the fan-related items of a club. So membership, ticketing, merchandise, community programs. And then I switched across to Sydney FC to my third football code, which ended up being my longest. So I was at Sydney FC for 7 years. Started originally in the consumer role that I'd stepped out of the NRL in, and then kind of went full circle back into Chief Commercial Officer by the time I left, where I had basically everything that wasn't match operations underneath my remit. So, you know, fundamentally ensuring that the club had enough revenue to put quality players and teams on the pitch week in, week out, and at that club, success is very important. So ensuring they had enough to compete at a top level.
Next time we speak to you, will you be with the Waratahs?
I did join the board of wheelchair rugby, surprisingly. So technically I've ticked all 4 codes, yes. But football now for 8-9 years. So it's now my core.
Brilliant. Jen, I'm going to say this is embarrassing, 26 years ago that I met you at SBS. Would that be right?
Yeah, well, I was there in 2002.
Okay, you were there a long time ago. That's 3 decades in sports media. Is that where you started? How did you evolve into where you are today?
Well, I really admire people that have plans, and and goals and set out to achieve them. I'm not one of those people. So just looking at all these fabulous young faces here, if you don't have a plan, that's absolutely fine. But now looking back from where I sit here, actually all of my decisions led to me sitting here, led to me having that fabulous job in the Women's World Cup. So I studied a sports science degree after being really interested in the PDH program when I was in year 11 and 12, my elective. And I actually didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I thought I might be a sports lawyer because I'm kind of pedantic at things, and I think that's what makes me a good manager as well, attention to detail. But out of that degree, most of my peers went into a practical stream, so they were going on to be physios or educators or something like that, but I went down the management stream of that. And these are all choices that you will make as you go through your education, and don't put too much pressure on yourself because you'll find your path. But my first job actually was in broadcast, was on cricket, the 99 Cricket World Cup in England for Sky Sports. That was just an accident that I happened to know someone who needed some help. So there's so many fortuitous moments in my career that led me to where I am. So the experience at Sky Sports, they have a very high standard of production, very high expectations of their staff, which set me up really well to have that high expectation for myself when I came home, and got a 12-month maternity leave position at SBS, and I ended up being there for 17 years. 5 Women's World Cups, 3 Women's World Cups, because the women's tournament when I first started wasn't given the respect it deserved. And so, yeah, many years in football, and like Steph said, to be there at SBS was really a special cultural part of our game. And to be there from 2002 through that amazing Socceroos run, through to the Matildas, like achievements in France and here in our tournament, it's been, all the choices that I didn't realise I was making along the way.
Absolutely.
And without a plan, it's okay.
You'll get there. My parents are still waiting for me to get a proper job, if that makes sense. Because when I left school, I started international business relations, and then I changed into health sciences, and I became a personal trainer and a naturopath. And I had a next door neighbour who was a producer director at SBS, who saw me playing out in the back garden, kicking a football with one of my then toddlers, and said, "Oh, do you like sport? We need a female sports presenter to read the sports news." And I went, "Oh, sounds like fun." So I went for the audition. I was terrible. I didn't get the job. But they said, "Oh, we'd actually like to train you and see if we can make something of this." So I did a 1.5 years of training with them, and then ended up with that news reading role. Biffed off the naturopathic clinic because it was actually proper hard work, and went into media, which was great. And my parents have been nervous ever since that I don't have a real job, because I just go from one event to another, and they think it's a little bit nuts. But it certainly wasn't what I set out to do. And interestingly, for the last 2 years, I've been chair of the Sports Diplomacy Advisory Council for DFAT, which is our government's Department of Foreign Affairs. So I've actually come full circle back to international business. And I, again, like Jen, didn't pick that. These things just come into your path. And I think the most important thing was just never saying no to an opportunity and just running with it. Jen, I just wanted you to expand perhaps a little bit on what that looked like at SBS when you were in that logistics role, because you would do everything from making sure that the late great Les Murray had the hotel he wanted, and there was planes, trains, automobiles, and that was a massive role, particularly at tournament time, right?
Yes, it was, but you're part of a team and everyone has to play their part. And my part was having things organised, communicating the organised things to the other people, and then reminding the other people when they forgot of the things that had already been organised for them. So We need our producers to be concentrating on their scripts and their show and their talent. We need our talent to be concentrating on what they're going to say when that camera turns on. There's a whole huge group of people that is involved in a broadcast, and hi to Suze here. Wave Suze. Hi, remember? Suze is one of the very few female directors in our industry, and so there's a huge number of people. But so Suze and the rest of the crew need to know where they're starting, what their rundown is, how they get their graphics in. So many things that just need to be organised. And actually, once we go to 3, 2, 1, we're on air. My job is done, and I have to let the rest of the people do. They have to shine. But if I can put in place for them the budget, the flights, the accommodation, the internet connection, the phones that work, all of the things that make their jobs, for them to succeed at their job, then it is a bit of in the background, but I prefer that. I don't like being in front of the camera, I like being behind it.
And if it's not done right, everything falls over. So it's can I also say Susan's got the best shoes in the whole room?
Yeah,
absolutely. Zosh, when you left school, could you have ever imagined that you would be front and centre in creating homes for our national team players?
No way. I grew up in a small town in Queensland, so for me to be even in Sydney is a huge leap. I never even thought I'd be out of Brisbane, to be honest. So it's kind of similar to Hannah and Jenny here. Like, I wanted to be an opal growing up, but I just stopped growing, nor did I have the talent. So I was like, okay, what is my alternative? And I went thinking about uni, what did I really want to do? And so I went and did a Bachelor of Business, majoring in marketing, and then I did also a sports science degree. So literally a mold of the degrees here. And then I just thought throughout, what do I really want to get out of it? Going through the degree, I was like, this medicine side, I really wanted to be a sports doctor, but I was like, no, this is not for me. I'm just too technical. So I completed it. I just got the piece of paper, but I was like, yeah, this marketing side is just really exciting. It's creative. It's a bit exciting as well. So had a few internships at AFL clubs and also worked in the fitness industry. So just working through that, through the opportunities, and went, yeah, how does this really work? So really then had a couple of detours. I went into tech development for a little bit to really hone my skills in marketing, just to get those fine skills in that side of the business. Was there for a couple of years, and then one of my friends moved to Sydney and she got into radio, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So I hit her up for a weekend job. So I ended up being in tech development during the week, and then weekends I was actually a street team so I was just out there, those Kiss Thunderbirds that give you the free Cokes, that was me. Like, I was just doing stuff like that over the weekend, and thought that's pretty awesome. So again, I left tech development, got a full-time job, and then I worked on Kiss FM and worked on the Carl and Jackie O show. So random, doing their campaigns and promotions, doing the crazy stuff you hear on air. And then I'm just like, what is happening? Like, I was like, had those moments. Like, we did a wedding once, and then Ed Sheeran was a wedding singer. I was like, where did this actually end up? I had no idea it would really ever be in my mind. So, but doing all those fun stuff and working with world-class media personalities, like, that's an incredible, achievement that I've been able to really take advantage of as well. And I was there for 7 years, so going at a really high-class radio station, and I was like, what's next for me? And I just went on Seek, and I was like, just scrolling through, and I saw the job ad for Football Australia. I was like, that degree you had for sports and you really wanted to be a sports person, this is it for me. So I went through the process, and 8 years later in football and working on the Matildas and Socceroos, again, it's like a full circle moment. Like, I think a lot of people, I knew where I was when the Socceroos qualified. I knew exactly what I even had for dinner that night. So it was just like such a big moment. And I remember I had that in my resume as well. And I was like, how have I made this full circle here? It's actually really insane. And then things like the World Cups, to be able to go to them, like in different roles, and then actually work and be kind of in the bubble with Steph last year as well. It's really nothing I actually ever imagined would be anything achievable for a little girl from Toowoomba in Queensland, for anything like that. Yeah.
I have so many questions about the Carl and Jackie O show now.
That's not why we're here.
Yeah, oh, okay, sorry. So deflated. You guys can ask them. Throughout your career, they're not exactly tangents, because again, you can see how everyone's paths kind of lead to where we are tonight. And how did you make the decisions of where to go and what to do?
It was honestly for me just gut feeling. Like, I think when you're in a position at work, you're like, have I maxed out what are my abilities here to be able to be creative in my field in particular? Sometimes you do things over and over again. You're like, I'm not kind of really feeling this. What's new for me? And then, I felt really privileged that I didn't need to be stuck in an industry, that my role in marketing, it can flex to any industry at all. So that's where kind of my differentiation in fitness and tech and radio, now football and sport, it's really a feeling where you want to feel comfortable and happy as well, and where you want to really develop in those skills as well.
I know that if any of you go and study media after finish school and you go through tertiary education, it would look completely different to the media that I studied. Tell us from a marketing perspective what students are now looking at doing, because I'm going to say social media probably wasn't around at the start of your career.
Yeah, it's all digital. Like, I think introduction to digital was a unit for me, let alone probably a major or a standalone degree. So that kind of speaks to the development of industries, to be able to develop your skills yourself and keep up with industry practices as well. And again, the fortunate thing with marketing is that you can look at world-class campaigns across different realms of life and experiences and try and bring it back to what you're doing at this very moment in time, and apply it to the Matildas, apply it to the Socceroos. We can look at what Google's doing and go, hey, how can we do that at home here locally for our clubs? Want to look globally, but act locally as well. It's really important.
Now, this night is of course for all of you, so I want you to have the chance to ask as many questions as you like. I'm going to give you that opportunity in a sec. But just before we do that, from each of you, what's the biggest challenge you faced in your career? How did you get through it? And the highlights. Who wants to start? I should have supplied you with questions.
I'll start with the challenges. I think it's just time. I think you want to be able to do everything and anything right, but honestly, if you want to give it your, sometimes you need to prioritize things, and you drop things, and drop things as in you can't do them all, so you can do your job really well. I think that's probably a real challenge, and particularly football, and where in my position, we work on every single competition, every single national team, community. So we've got such a realm of products that we manage. So we do need to prioritise to make sure the quality of work is always at its highest. And I've been really lucky to go to, I think, 3 World Cups. So I've been going overseas with Socceroos and Matildas. That's a highlight. I was the assistant team manager for the Matildas in France. So how random is that? I'm in marketing, but I'm being able to do that. So, and then I was in the bubble with Steph at the Women's World Cup. Yeah, it was. So things like that. And then particularly for the Women's World Cup, you just didn't realise what was happening on the outside until it was all happening after the match. So just feeling really privileged to be able to be part of that, and that you have a direct role or indirect impact on what the team was doing out there. It was an honour.
That was weird, actually, working inside the bubble for the Matildas. We were watching in the bowels of the stadium where the broadcast room was. We were watching the bus being filmed by a helicopter, which is never been done for women's football. That was in the state of origin thing. And it was mental to walk out of the hotel on our way there, and there were young girls and boys 4 or 5 deep outside the hotel with signs waiting for the players to come out. And I still remember my first thought was, how do they know where we're staying? Can they get in? Last one for you on that. How many Australian tracksuits do you own?
I've got a whole suitcase, and part of my wardrobe is just gear everywhere. And I know I'm on Brantz, so if it's off wrong logo, I don't wear it, but it's just more there for safekeeping. But a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there.
Sure. Yeah. Jen, biggest challenges?
Honestly, I can't really think of challenges. It's really been, there's hard days and hard period, but I think probably one of the biggest challenges is working on football in Australia, where most of the football is played elsewhere. And so there was a lot of 4 o'clock alarms, a lot of very, very long and tired nights. But that's part of the job, and it's, you know, you take the Socceroos qualifying at Stadium Australia with the 4 a.m, you know, 0-0 something or other. It's all part of the job. But honestly, the challenges is really hard to pick.
It is. You're right about it being exhausting though, because remember every time you get up in the middle of the night to watch a World Cup match or a Champions League or European leagues, or we had the Ashes, which was overnight for however many contests when.
And I was 7 months pregnant with my second child. I should know the answer to that.
That's how much it fried her brain. But that means there's a crew somewhere in Australia that's up all night. Kind of just staying awake and making sure that everything's happening at the right time and not getting the buttons wrong. So yeah, that's definitely challenging. So many highlights. Have you got a particular one?
I mean, being in my job on the Women's World Cup was definitely a highlight. Being in the stadium when the Matildas were playing in the semi-final at a home World Cup, it was just pinch yourself. Like, what is this really happening? But I would say the people and the travel are really the highlights. It's hard work, but I would have never gone to Uruguay to see an away Socceroos qualifier. You know, like that's next level. I was in Athens when Kurt Fearnley was winning his gold medal in the Paralympics. You know, the opportunities that I've had through the 4 a.m. calls, through all of the effort to get up in crazy hours, to work crazy hours. But you know, when you rock up at 4 a.m, you got 20 of your mates also rocking up at 4 a.m, and it's a team. You know, you're delivering a product that you know people will love, and you're with your mates. So yeah, it's the people and the travel, I guess, would be my highlight.
Super fun. So Hannah, the COO of a football club, I can remember a time when there's no way in anyone's imagination that role would have been held by a female. Yeah. Was that particularly challenging to come through that path to achieve that, or have you just sailed through your career?
I wish I'd sailed through. No, like, I think the biggest challenge is probably, I would say, it's hard work. Like, I don't want to fool anyone in this room. Sport is tough. It is a 24/7 job. But if you love something, it doesn't feel like work. But I think you do forget sport is, we're a news cycle. Like, you guys are literally in the news cycle, but you're living by results on the pitch. You're living by transfer news. You're living by breaking news that fans love. So you're working all the time, and you're thinking about the next event you're putting on. And so, your brain doesn't stop. So it's certainly challenging and it's taxing. And generally sport is under-resourced, football's under-resourced, and we'd all love more people to help. So I think they're some of the bigger challenges. But yeah, I was going to say, I think one thing that's been really interesting on my journey is when I started, I was one of the only females working in the clubs that I worked in. Thank goodness that's now changed. It's probably 50-50 now, and that's really fantastic. But I think I came in, I ended up being managing people that were 50-year-old males, which is a challenge, right? As like a young 20-year-old female.
Like your dad.
Yeah, like it's challenging from a perception point of view and how you engage and how you prioritize those things. So yeah, there's definitely challenges as a female, but as I said, thank goodness that is drastically changed in even just the last decade. But I think particularly now there's so many different degrees coming out, allowing more females access into a whole range of different roles. And I have to say, I feel really bad because I forgot when I talked about match day planning, I forgot about the roles that you guys do. Broadcast, media, social media, graphic design, like all of those things play a part in match day as well. So yeah, I think they're the two biggest challenges. But as I said, I think you do it because you love it. And I wouldn't have been here for this long and grinding that hard if there wasn't, a benefit at the end. And I think the absolute best thing about sport is it is one of the very few things that you can see. You can put all your hard work together and you see it come to life in front of your eyes. Like, there's not many industries that you can kind of point to where you see it come to life in front of your eyes. And see,
right there and there.
correct, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. As far as highlights go, you probably had countless. I've been privileged to be on the fringe of some of the ones you've had, and just working with the Sydney FC team or whichever club it is at the time, when they win a grand final, to watch what that means to the family that works on that and all the hard work you all put in throughout the season. I remember feeling a little bit envious because I only jump in for match day. So you're friends, but you're not in, doing the grind with them. And the joy that, to me, just seems like that would be one of the biggest highlights. How did that play out for you, and do you have something that was a bit bigger?
Yeah, I my first couple of jobs at the Giants and then at the Tigers was losing and getting flogged every week. So coming into work every Monday and having to pick up fan phone calls and complaints and read the media on the back page, like, it was a tough few years. So when I arrived at Sydney, they were also in a drought of performance on the pitch from both a men's and women's perspective. And I think about 18 months into my role there, both the men's and women's managed to win within, I think, 12 months of each other. So I think you're exactly right. Like, that grand final, and I will never forget the men's grand final in 2017, which was Sydney FC's first trophy in 7 years or so. I was lucky enough to actually, as part of my fan role at the time, I was with all the active supporters, 2,000 of them, that marched from down in Surrey Hills all the way to the stadium, got them in safely. The atmosphere was buzzing. I was on the pitch when the first goal was scored. And then, right behind the goal, actually. And then, just the euphoria of actually breaking that. Like, even though you're not playing, you 100% feel like, you have a little bit of that trophy that you want to celebrate yourself. So, that was fantastic. And then, as I said, we were lucky at Sydney FC. I have no complaints there. It was like trophy after trophy after trophy after that. So really, really lucky in that regard. But from a fan perspective, I would say attending the Women's World Cup. I've never worked in a World Cup like you guys. I would love to do that. That's probably a goal of mine. And Olympics probably too. But I think from a fan perspective, last year was pretty special.
And sport gives you so many opportunities, as you've heard, through all different forms of roles and different spaces that you can get a job in, work in, play in, all that sort of thing. You can be involved in a lot of different things, but there are just so many high points from a media perspective. Now, I did start in the media when I was one of only 2 or 3 female presenters. It was something that people would tell me, like, how do you feel being one of the only females? That actually never occurred to me because there were great women that I was working with, and it just never really struck a chord with me until later. And now, of course, we see so many women working in televised sport, so it's become the absolute norm, if not skewing slightly the other way in some instances. So that wasn't something that I particularly saw as a challenge. Working in media, particularly television media for me, was you're never 100% secure. It's a lot of fun, and when it goes well, it goes really well. But if you work for a network and that network loses the rights, something you've been doing, you're like, yep, I do the Olympics. All of a sudden you don't do the Olympics because they're not at Channel 9 anymore. They've gone to 7 or they've gone to wherever, or in this case they've gone back the other way and now they're back at 9. When I was at 9, we had the cricket, and we had all the cricket until suddenly we didn't. When I was at the ABC, we had the Shoot Shield, the W League football, we had all the internationals, we had the whole Men's Asian Cup in 2015, we had all the internationals for basketball, all the internationals for hockey. Then the government decided to do a new budget, which sounds very boring and far away from anything that we're interested in, but the budget cut came to the ABC and they stopped all their domestic broadcasts. So I went from being busy 50 weeks of the year to I did the W League season of the year. And that completely changes your life. Equally, there are so many highlights, and you mentioned the Olympics and Paralympics. I worked on the London 2012 Paralympic Games, and I've got to say that was a truly life-changing event, because London was the first time that they did this marketing campaign about the superhumans, and the Paralympics was sold out, and it was just such an amazing buzz that I've never experienced before. So that was a huge highlight. And of course, being in the bubble at the Women's World Cup, working for FIFA TV has been so much fun, because you're actually just hanging out with your country. I've got to say that the only downside to the Women's World Cup is normally a World Cup for me means you travel overseas. So I'm like, right, I grew up in Brisbane, I just kids there. But it was super fun. So there's just so many amazing things, and I'm sure you're all listening to this going, yeah, I'd like to cherry that and have that as my career. But as you can see, there is so much choice. I'm sure you've heard a lot that you'd like to ask about. Don't be shy. These are three of the most chilled women that I know. Has anyone got something that they've got a burning, or something they've heard, even they just want one of these ladies to elaborate on? You guys are going to be really shy. Please.
Hello, thank you so much. Such an incredible opportunity to hear from four incredibly successful women working in sport. My name's Jess. I'm a senior lecturer in sport management at Western Sydney Uni. So my job is preparing graduates to work in the world of sport, both men and women. I just wondered, reflecting on your careers, particularly those that worked and were in marketing or business, was there anything in your degree that you think perhaps should have been talked about more? You know, reflecting on all your experiences that you've had, is there anything you wish you knew more about before you entered into the workforce?
Oh, nice one. Who would like to start? All three of you can take this.
Ooh. I think for me it was just it was very technical in that I didn't feel like I had the real life examples about it, how I could apply it. You knew the theory of it, and like for me it was like marketing plan, strategy, promotion, cool, but how do you actually do that? And I felt like I had to learn or teach myself when I first got into my marketing job. Like it was more just find your feet and just figure it out, rather than actually knowing, yeah, I'm ready and raring to go. I remember this is how it works. It was just kind of that next step, how to apply those skills and being prepared before you go into a job, rather than trying to learn on the job as well. That's probably one for me.
For me, actually, I think the most important thing that I got out of my degree was the university did a really good job of volunteer and placement opportunities, and that's where I learned the most, because you get a chance to show your capability and willingness to actually work, and you have contacts immediately when you leave to get a job. And that's exactly what happened to me. I volunteered for 2 years, I think, or 2.5 years, across a couple of different sports while I was doing my degree. And I think that was where I translated the theory to the practical. And I think there's a lot of people that do degrees these days that probably don't take those opportunities, because it's like, oh, volunteer, I'd rather do something else. But it truly was the kind of reason that I was employed immediately, straight after. And I'm just trying to think, like, of my graduating group. Like, there's only probably 5 of us in sport, and they're the ones that truly got out there and put themselves forward.
This is actually a really good lesson for all of you. It's same answer for me. So it wasn't an opportunity from the university as such, but I did the first 2 years of the human movement degree, and I actually took a year off and did a traineeship, a completely separately run traineeship, which a portion of it was at Fox Sports, actually in the marketing department. So my very first job in sport was in telly, just by chance. And that traineeship opportunity, went back and finished my degree the following year. But that connection with Fox Sports then connected me with the affiliate Sky Sports in London, which then set off my whole production career. So it's, like I said, it was never planned, but there were choices. You know, I chose to go to Fox Sports for the traineeship as opposed to a lawyer's office, which is what I thought I was going to do. So yeah, it's the absolutely hands-on practical experience definitely is the most important.
Really good question. Just give us a wave if you've got a question. Those volunteering and intern type positions can't be underestimated, and we're casting our minds a long way back to think of the 2000 Olympics, but that was my first foray into media. I was a volunteer, and I had that stint, the small stint at SBS first to try it out, but I was a volunteer in the media centre at Darling Harbour, and that was mind-blowing. I suddenly realised how many international media there were, and I was like, wow, we are tiny, and all the languages around you, it was crazy, which really helped when I went to work for ESPN, who do half their business meetings in Spanish, because their Latino market is one of their biggest ones within football, and then they'll say, Stephanie, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't understood a word of what you said for the last half hour. Good fun. Ladies, any more questions? This is your opportunity.
I was just... Yep, so I'm Hazel Maxwell. I'm also from Western Sydney University. I'm the Director of Programs for Physical Education, Health and Sport Development. So I have students that are in a whole range of sports organisations at the moment doing internships, and they're just saying that's the most fantastic part of their course, and they can get to really choose which sports they go to, and then we approach them and we come to an agreement. So have you worked with a lot of interns from different universities throughout your careers, or...?
Actually, in media I have.
Yeah.
Often it's the ones that ring you up, though. They find you on LinkedIn and they'll say, can you get me any opportunities? And we've actually had some come out and do shadow commentaries with our commentators here at Football New South Wales, and I've been able to have a couple on the sideline broadcasts, which I'm not sure if I needed more permission from one of you for that, but you can. If you ask, you'll find that people really are willing to help.
Yeah, I mentioned it before. Football is under-resourced. Sport is under-resourced. Every role I've worked in, we've had many interns. I would say particularly at Sydney FC, they're probably the best at it. There was roles in media every year, membership, community development, which are really good, toe-dipping exercises, because you can kind of go in and go, oh, I thought I liked... event operations. Oh, no, I really don't like that. Oh, but you know what? Wow, that's fascinating that multi-million-dollar deals are done on signage, and that perks your interest. And so you lean into that. So, I've personally always use interns, and I think that it's core to sport in Australia.
Yeah, and particularly your career where you've been diverse across different codes. That's what I'm sort of saying to my students. Then maybe, have a code or a club. I want to go and work for Parramatta Eels, but what about the Giants? So, you know, to think more flexibly, because the roles are similar, but across different sports.
Yeah, well, funny. I mean, from my perspective, I grew up in Sydney, so, and I think I mentioned it before, football wasn't really my core. I grew up in rugby league territory, and I was a West Tigers fan, so I took the opportunity, or the job opportunity that was given to me, I guess, coming out of uni, but it wasn't, my dream job by any stretch. But then I luckily got an opportunity to follow a person, a great leader across, which was a good choice that I made to go into that role. But then actually, funny enough, I got into the role that I thought was the dream role. And after 3 years, I was a little bit like, okay, what's next, And then, as I said, I went into football, so.
I think that's one of the challenges, I should have said, is getting the resources to have those interns and have those kind of students that come in. And what I would say to you, especially the young ones here, but also to your university students and graduates, when you get that opportunity, be the person that they want to talk to again. And having kind of supervised a lot of either school age and also university age work experience students, not so much interns, but short-term work experience, you really stand out if you show that you're interested in what's happening and ask questions and engage with it. And the people that would come in, and I understand it's daunting when you're going into a workplace and you're 16 years old and you don't know anything. Don't sit in the corner and just wait for someone to tell you what to do. Be the person that's asking, what does that do? And why are you doing that? And it's amazingly different personalities, and I understand it's a challenge to talk to grown-ups, but you get so much more out of any of those opportunities that come your way if you are interested in the subject matter and engage with those people who are giving you their time to support you. You're giving a lot to them, but they're giving a lot to you as well. So be involved and be interested, and you'll get more opportunities than if you're kind of waiting for someone to tell you something.
Yeah, show initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and myself, I've benefited from internship AFL in Queensland. So I think if you've experienced yourself, you encourage others to be part of the experience as well, and give them advice on how to really embrace it as well. And we're really fortunate in football and sport that, you know, what Hannah was speaking to, there's so many different types of experiences. Yes, you can be placed with a marketing team, but you can go to events, you can go to competitions, you can go to legal, you can go to finance, whatever you really want, and test out what are the different types of roles there are in football for me, and then pick your venture really. So I think I can't endorse it anymore. It's that real life experience, and then you see it most of the times that can turn into a permanent role for them, even if it's a contract, small contract, or a permanent role. Like it's invaluable almost job interview right there on the spot for them as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think time's just about up. Ladies, anyone? Got it?
Where's that?
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I'm one of the coaches here. We've got some young girls from Football NSW Institute. I guess you've obviously touched on a few things there. What would be a bit of advice you would give these girls? Obviously, they all want to play for the Matildas and be professional athletes, but it's important to be able to improvise and put yourself outside your comfort zone. What's something that maybe has happened in your career that you sort of thought that didn't go to plan? What's the next move? So just a bit of advice to give them. I know it's been very rewarding for me, but also hopefully for these young women here. Bit of advice, maybe one or two things that they could take away for life after football, but also as they start to progress to the HSC through their electives, to prepare them for life after football or continuing in football and any sport.
Nice. Share your wisdom, ladies. I gave you my top tip. Never say no to an opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I sound a little bit probably like a broken record, but I think don't be scared about where your path takes you. Like if you think that you have to go in this direction to get there, there's many different ways to get there. And I think you've just got to embrace the journey and use initiative and meet people and learn more and be a sponge in every environment you get the chance to be in, because all of that accumulated knowledge will put you in the best place in lack of having exact experience for maybe the path that you want to go to in the future.
I would say be aware of other people around you and what they're doing. So you guys are focused on your training and your sport and your performances. But if you see that person that's organising the schedule and you think, gosh, that's really interesting, I wonder how they do that, have a conversation with them. I learned so much about grass and pitch management during the Women's World Cup because I sat next to the guy who's responsible for the grass. And I don't want to go into looking after pitches, but there's so many people that you will just come into contact with that if you, one of the things really, really early in my career, I was on an outside broadcast, I didn't know what I was doing, but I saw this guy who was organised, who had the schedule, he had some lollies for the crew, he had everything in hand. I'm like, I want to do what you do. And that's how I started my kind of career towards being the production manager side rather than any other part of production. So while you're going about your business and you're focused on your stuff, I would say just look around you at what other people are doing and see the people that are doing the signage and see the people that are doing the operations. And if any of it interests you, talk to that person, because I almost certainly guarantee you they are so happy to share and so happy to talk to you. And if you get talking to Alan about the grass, just set yourself aside a half an hour because it is fascinating.
I too have learned a lot about grass.
Just, be aware of the people around you and what they're doing and what interests you about that. And you'll find your path.
And be the person with the lollies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just an extension, just really quickly, just ask the questions. There's nothing worse than coming out of conversation going, oh, what did that mean? What was that? I need more information. Just ask it politely with respect, and it's fine. People will always have time for you to answer that, because there's nothing worse going away from a conversation with them, whatever context there is, and going, I don't understand that, and trying to figure out for yourself. So for me, it's just ask the questions. Yeah.
And you're starting in the perfect environment because you are in a team. I think we've got one over here and one over here. You're in a team environment, and that is probably the most valuable lesson I think you get from sport is working with other people. You're not always going to get on, you're not always going to agree with everyone, but you're pulling in the same direction, and no one is successful in a vacuum. You'll have teams around you your entire life, so this is a great way to learn that. Go on.
I'm over 50 and I'm already thinking about my next career move as team manager for the Matildas or the junior Matildas or the young Matildas or the Socceroos. Or how did that come about, and what sort of skill set do you think is important for that sort of role?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had one stint as assistant team manager at Matildas. Honestly, it was just really an opening because the national teams unit just needed someone to fill in. I put my hand up. It was literally that kind of opportunity, is knowing who you are, making yourself available, asking, hey, is there an opportunity? Literally, that's how it came across and how it came about. And that was one of the craziest kind of moments, because I went into that absolutely knowing nothing about team management, only seeing what I saw from the outside, from a marketing perspective, what I saw at events. So I was like literally in it at a World Cup. That was my first experience. So it was incredible. And that was really being surrounded by really good people as well, talking to that team environment, literally team environment, but team management, asking those questions, like not being afraid to ask what is this all about, and then to see that happen like tragically out during a penalty shootout. But it let me establish some really incredible working relationships with team managers, but also the players. So now I have that direct contact with most of those players to this day. So you can ask favours directly when you need a bit of a favour on the side. That it's just so many benefits to it. And, you know, I'm just a product of just asking that question, right, and then benefiting from it, and then experience it right at life at a top level at the World Cup. It's pretty ridiculous, really, but
team management's fascinated me though, because I got that look at a role that I didn't quite, it's there, but you didn't know it was actually a thing. And it can be, you've got to be the sort of person that around the clock, particularly in camp, you might be asked for things as random as one of the players, you need to find them some nail clippers or something, and then the next 5 minutes later you'll get a call saying the luggage bus has arrived and you've got to organise moving 140 bags up 8 floors, which was fun.
Yes.
But just all these different roles, but then whenever something's needed, you're the point person. So I hope you don't sleep. Did we have another one?
No.
You got to answer?
You actually said the exact question that I was going to ask, but I just take this opportunity to thank you, ladies. It's fantastic to see what happens behind the scenes, and it's great to see such, you got ladies are successful in a sport and probably in an industry that are male dominant. So good on you, and hopefully we'll see these girls, if they're not successful footballers, they'll be following in your footsteps. So thank you.
Thank you, really well said. As you can hear, we all wanted to be elite athletes, but it kind of didn't pan out.
I didn't. I never wanted to be. I was wing defence.
That's the usual. Ladies, thank you so much. I'm going to go to Kristen as our last voice.
Just a very quick question. Thank you, ladies, coming and talking. Thank you, everyone here in the audience. Very quickly, a lot of these players, they've got school training, playing, club volunteers who've got a full-time day job, then they have to go and organise everything at the club. What's one thing that you do in your jobs to have some sort of balance in life, and how you kind of prioritise tasks?
The most important thing that I learned in my life, and I'm really bad at it, and I still struggle with it, is the ability to say no when things get too much. Because I think we have this innate desire to be everything to everyone and be the most competent and always be on top of everything. It's okay to ask for help. And that was one thing that it took me a very long time to learn. I'm still crap at it, so it's, just keep going, and you go home and you go, I can't do this anymore. That and sleep. Yeah. Please.
going to say, I schedule it in. Like, I'm a meticulous planner. Like, you just go, this is my day off, and I stick to it and, like, say, no, but this is my day off. I need time for myself. I need to do absolutely nothing, watch reality TV, whatever I need to do. But I think it's really important that there is that balance, because you will burn out. You really do. We see a lot in our jobs that people say yes to a lot of things because it is a really exciting industry, exciting jobs, but you don't want to miss out. You have that FOMO factor, but sometimes you do have to say no and protect yourself.
I've got no idea. I don't know.
I mean, my answer is pretty similar. I'm a scheduler. I have to-do lists. I have calendars. I just make sure that I've got everything written down somewhere to come back to reference, including time off and when to switch off, and reminders to go home and see my partner before he kills me.
Yeah, that's probably a very good point for your relationships. It's very important. Staying on top of things, being organised. If you're someone like me, it's all in my phone, but then I don't trust my phone, so I also have a paper diary, and I've got a whiteboard in my office at home. So I'm just a paranoid scheduler as well. So that kind of, I think, wraps it up really well about how challenging it can be, but when you nail it, life can be very, very good indeed. For all of you, I think you're probably much more excited about the sandwiches that I think have just arrived at the back of the room. But can I... Ladies, thank you. Can I first ask you to please give a round of applause to... Thank you for organising this, and ladies, I hope you got something out of this, because these three women are absolutely incredible. Would you please thank Nicole, Jenny and Hannah?
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to catch up with previous episodes covering a wide variety of community football topics.